I believe everybody's here that was at lunch anyway. I'd like to introduce to you Rodney Hill. I don't have a big bio on him that gives all his credentials and all that kind of stuff for years after years after years. But I'll just give you a little bit of my personal background with him and things that I know about him. I guess the first time I ever heard the name Rodney Hill was all associated with these wood carvings that were in the Memorial Student Center at A&M that were put up in honor of A&M's centennial, which was in 1976. And so, you know, those were well publicized and everything, and it was Rodney and Susan Hill did all of these kind of wood carvings and just amazing pieces of artwork. And the next time I ran across that name was Sharon and I moved up here from Corpus Christi in 1981. And we moved into a house on Oak Hill Circle, it's called. It's between the airport and the river, off on the left side over there. Kind of a modern house, if you will. And it had this crazy front door that had all these little chips of wood out of it and stuff like that. And where in the world does anyone find a door like this? So I was out not too long or sometime after we moved in, and I was cleaning the door, and I happened to see this little inscription somewhere on the thing that said, Rodney Hill. I went, oh, okay. That house was built in 73, 74 time frame. So I figured, well, Rodney must have been learning how to do wood carving on our front door. That was my thought there. Of course, over time, you know, I've come to see a lot of the other things Rodney has done, and just the design that he and his wife Susan have done. He doesn't just do, you know, hasn't just done woodwork. Back in 2019 as well, got really familiar with another couple of pieces that he had done that are bronze sculptures. He had carved. Had created these bronze sculptures around around A&M's two most hallowed traditions, silver taps and muster. Those had been on display in various places around what's called Academic Plaza at A&M. But in 2019, as part of our A&M class's 50th reunion, if you will, we put together a big project to implement a place we call the Spirit Plaza. And the Spirit Plaza was to capture all of these things that have to do with Aggie spirit. So as part of that, we got a hold of Rodney and said, Rodney, can we move your sculptures into the Spirit Plaza and give them a permanent home? Because they'd been actually they were a little nomadic. They were being moved from this place to this place and not really earning the respect that we thought that they should. So Rodney worked with us on that and helped us some with the design of the Spirit Plaza, those things. And then finally, where I got to really become more acquainted with him was also a 2019 thing with the Aggie Band was going to be celebrating its 125th anniversary. And along with that was going to be the opening of the new Music Activity Center at A&M. I have an Aggie classmate, Michael Parrott, who was a student of Rodney's in the architecture department back in the latter 60s. And Rodney and Michael had maintained this excellent relationship over years, very close friendship, those kind of things. And so Michael got this idea that he wanted to emulate Rodney Hill and create a wood carving about the Aggie Band, and launched into a 5-year project of creating this wood carving that now sits in a special little alcove at the Music Activity Center. So if you ever have a chance to go into the Music Activity Center at A&M, which I'd encourage you to do sometime, it's a fascinating building for what it does with the 1,300 people in A&M that are involved in music performance groups of one sort or another. You know, so that is in there. And Rodney was kind of a key consultant with Michael in getting that done and advising and those kind of things. Michael had actually launched into that hoping that Rodney would help him and do some of the work, but Rodney's got to the point where he physically couldn't handle all the wood carving at this point. And so, anyway, with that, I got to become good friends with Rodney through all these different kinds of things over the time. And so, with that, I'm going to quit introducing and welcome Rodney Hill.
Okay, I guess this is Capital National Bank in Houston, and they're cast aluminum. And then this is the Highland Park Methodist. I carved a bunch of doors in Dallas, and so anyhow, when I worked for a firm there, and then I went to Houston, one of the people in the firm there got commissioned to do the Highland Park Methodist, which is the largest Methodist church in the world, and so ended up, doing their font, table, pulpit, screens, and then Matthew 25, verses 35 and 36. And then this is in Texarkana, and it's a public place there, commissioned bronze. And this is the Lipsky House.
Is that the door?
Right.
Where is it? No, is that the door?
Right. And this is in the Texas room at Austin Capitol. And this is for Greenvine Lutheran. And this is for another door.
Now that door, go back to that, Rodney, because I think that was our front door.
Do what?
I think the one on top.
This is in Brazos County. And then this is the start of the A&M panels. The Board of Regents commissioned me. They were first, this is for the 100-year anniversary, and they had somebody suggested a bunch of cute little porcelain things, and one of the Board of Regents had seen the wood carvings at Highland Park Methodist. And so anyhow, he had the Board of Regents go up there. So they commissioned me to do the 100-year history of Texas A&M. Well, there was no history book at that time of Texas A&M. It was like, duh. So I spent 4 months in the archives, going through every annual, went to every college on campus, and talked to the executive boards, and got a list of faculty emeritus to go talk to them. And then the Board of Regents, as I was carving it, realized, well, there wasn't a history. So they commissioned a history of A&M that was finished about the time I finished these. And the only thing that sort of went awry, I showed them all the drawings, and the core around, they had little words they used for dining, and some of those words were R-rated, which I didn't know, and I had them designed there, and the Board of Regents caught them quickly, so they were eliminated. So anyhow, started from the original Aggie rings to the old College Station and the horse-drawn wagon carrying all the cadets' luggage, to the rest of the campus, and all of their rings, and all of the costumes they had, and all the yell leaders. Yell leaders did everything from cowboy hats to, regular cheerleading outfits to the whole bit. And then into the horse-drawn plow, planting by the orbit, the moon, and then into all of the things they're doing with the Space Center. Everything from the Galveston, and the submarines and everything. Two years. My department head, who liked art, scheduled all my classes in the morning. So at noon till midnight, I carved for 2 years. And my wife helped, because she's an artist. She's a physical therapist, but she's also an artist. So, and we had a person come in and take care of the kids. So we carved till midnight. And we actually got them done a week before the dedication. So this is St. Thomas Aquinas. And this is a door for an oil heiress. And anyhow, she wanted a Christus Rex. Her husband was a hunter, so she wanted his rifles and all the animals and birds he hunted. And then he opened up a hamburger place in Houston, so she wanted that. So I put the Christ on the hamburger, cut the mustard. And on the back side of the door, she wanted her 2 Great Danes, her parrot, and 5 of the several Picassos she owned. And she was on the telephone all day, drinking Dr. Peppers. It was a 4-foot by 7-foot door, 5.5 inches thick. I'm sorry? 5.5 inches. And then this is for another church commission. And so different ways to do crosses. And this is for Brazos Valley Rehab. And this is for the mantelpiece for the CEO of Swanson Foods up in Montana. And this is Obelisk of Learning in the library. And this is for Germania Insurance Company. Another cross. Right. And I didn't do a lot since we're going to be right here. And I was telling him at the table, in our travels around the world, we collected a lot of small miniature crosses, and we have 100 of them in our living room. So when visitors come through, I make sure they walk through. So if any of them start smoking, I can see if they're vampires. This is for, let's see, what's his name? Up in Midland, a big oil heir. And this is for his wife for Christmas. And yeah. And his wife wanted all the animals on the North American continent carved in on the chest. And then in the drawers, she had wildlife books. And this is in Washington, D.C., in the Texas room. This is the Catholic Church here in town. And there are different stations of the cross and their crucifix. And that's Germania Insurance Company, their logo. And this was carving for the Brazos County. This is Brazos County, and this is, if you go downtown, it's there's on the wall. Yeah. Here's another cross. This is for a client who wanted a chest for his wife. And this is the Bush School. And this is their key to the George Bush Presidential Library. And then when I was at Berkeley, I did a lot of welding carvings, and I carved toilet seats and sold them at a gallery over there. And some friends in San Antonio invited us down to the lighthouse in Matagorda, which was owned by H.E. Budd. And so anyhow, I carved him a toilet seat for his wall, which called the H.M. Budd. And then you opened it up, and it was called the head. And this is muster out in front of the academic building. And then they had me carve the wooden table for the muster ceremony. And silver taps. And then I did all the carvings in the core center. And then I did the mace that the graduates, follow to get their diploma. And this is Wealthman Foundation. Oh, and this is for the School of Architecture. Farmer Student commissioned that. Okay, and then the Board of Regents commissioned me to do 13-foot tall bronze and carved wood sculpture for the new university in Qatar. And this was for Her Highness. And she sent a private airplane to pick it up. And then she had it behind drapes. She had to look at it before she'd accept it, and then she did accept it. But it also was, the Board of Regents said, it depicts the 2,000 years of history of the Arab culture. And of course, there was nothing written. So I was on the internet a lot, so I'm sure the CIA is wondering all these Arab things I was looking up. It finished. And then a real rich guy in Qatar, A&M had sent them their old mace, which wasn't real pretty. So he said, I want a mace that will outshine the present mace at A&M. Cost is no object. So, yeah. Said cost is no object.
What kind of wood is in that place?
And then Spirit of Place, that was commissioned by the Regents too. And A&M would give it to somebody every year for some dedication. So when Jerry Jones had the big A&M playoff at his stadium, the president brought the Spirit of Place, Texas A&M University, placed it over Jerry Jones' neck, who was not an A&M graduate, but he had to wear it in front of the TV. And this was just a hand I carved with the crucifix in the hand. And then this particular cross, it's actually about a little over 5 feet. And it was the International Conference in '67 on religious architecture. And the conference was on Christ in the cross or Christ on the cross. Christ had never been carved in the cross. So I carved it in the cross. So it won the international award. City of Bryant for their courthouse. So that's pretty much it. Yeah.
What kind of wood is in the silver?
How much what?
What kind of wood is in the silver mace?
Yeah.
What kind of wood?
Walnut.
Walnut. What's your favorite kind of wood?
What?
Favorite kind of wood. What's your favorite kind of wood?
Trouble in my hearing aids.
What is your favorite kind of wood?
Oh, walnut. Yeah, walnut will hold a good cut, and it won't splinter. One thing on doing the A&M panels, there was one mess up. A&M had the reveille dyed while it was in progress, so I had to carve another reveille, and I had blocks of wood from that I was able to glue in, and you couldn't tell it was added. So the next reveille was put up there.
What is your training?
As an architect, and both my parents were artists. You know, my dad was in advertising art, my mother was an artist, and they made sure I majored in architecture because they didn't want me to be an artist. So, anyhow, actually, I worked in Houston and Dallas and worked on many buildings that won national awards, designing them. You had a question?
I do. First off, you're amazing. Your abilities and how you craft the wood and how you see it is stunning. I am wondering, can you shed
Let me hand her the microphone, that way you can hear better too. So.
I'll pass it around. I don't know if you heard, but I think you're amazing. I'll just re-say it. Your ability to see a piece of wood and what you can do with that wood
Right.
is spectacular. I was wondering if you could shed some light on how you came to the dove and how you created it, and the piece on the front of the altar.
Build them all in drawings first, and then I just start.
So do you feel led or inspired when you are given a project that you're given to say, can you do this for us? when you're commissioned to do a project, are you inspired in some way?
Yeah. Yeah, I try to use my imagination to come up with unique, designs for each project.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Rodney, do you have any recollection of how you got involved with Peace Lutheran Church as it began? And who might have worked with you on doing the dove and those kind of things?
Nobody worked with me.
Well, I mean, you had some connection with somebody at Peace at that time.
No, I just, at the time, they wanted something unusual. And so this is what I came up with.
One of our members couldn't be here today. She's out of town. But she wondered, were you asked to do a dove, or
No,
that
I
was
just
just
did
something
it.
you were inspired by? Okay,
Right.
I'll give her that information. Thank
Yeah.
you, sir.
You said for A&M, you were scheduled for classes in the morning, and then from noon till midnight, you carved. How did you do that physically? I mean, it had to be difficult on your hands. Did you suffer any pain? I would have been in pain.
no,
Really?
yeah, no,
Wow. That's
my wife's a
amazing.
physical therapist. So we had all sorts of heating devices and all sorts of things like that.
Yeah. Well, at least she was a physical therapist, too. She could work with you on your
Yeah.
hands. That's good.
Rodney, do you use hand tools or do you?
Yeah, we have 3 mallets of different sizes, and we have about 40 different chisels, spoon gouges, all sorts of different kinds of gouges. And then we have a Dremel drill if we have to do lettering.
Are you still carving? Are you still producing?
What?
Are you still carving art?
No, about 2018, I had a pacemaker put in, so I couldn't be around anything mechanical. And I had just finished designing a series of panels for the A&M Law School with 40 attorneys. So you can imagine it was nearly all words. And so I just gave them the sketches, I didn't charge, and say, good luck. Yeah.
Is the wood in the items that you made for Peace, are these walnut?
Let's see, the bowl, I think the bowl's oak,
It's
but
out
everything else is walnut.
walnut. Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, all that's walnut.
All of these, the dove
Yeah.
here is walnut.
I think it is. And it's the easiest to carve because it'll hold everything. And a lot of the things like oak and cherry will splinter. So I like the walnut. It holds up. I've never, never kept track. It was a long time.
Is it pieces of wood glued together?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, all of them were glued. It was super 2-part epoxy.
I've given the mic back, but how old were you when you started carving?
How old were you when you started carving?
I guess probably 22. Before I just drew things. But, you know, I got stuck in the architecture firm because I designed a lady that we were doing her house in Highland Park. She had some beautiful needlepoint tapestry, and we were doing a huge circular stairway. And I said, you know, your steps, you should have the steps carved like the patterns in the tapestry. And she liked that idea, and then she refused to go on with her house unless the steps were carved. So the boss said, you got us into this, you can get us out of it. So that's how I got started. I opened my mouth.
How old were you when you stopped?
When I stopped, oh, let's see, it was about 2018, and I was born in 39.
So figure it out. 79.
Right. Yeah, and I taught at A&M for 52 years, 19,000 students.
So what did your parents think when you started doing this, since they wanted you to do something else and not,
Do what?
what did your parents think about you doing this?
Well, they were invited up for the A&M Centennial carvings, and they were very proud of that. And so from that point on, I didn't get any static.
Any other questions? Just
Where'd you grow up and how'd you get to A&M?
Lubbock, and went to Texas Tech undergraduate, and then I went to Berkeley for graduate school. Then I worked, 3 years in Dallas and 3 years in Houston, and then then I went to Berkeley, and then after Berkeley I came here to A&M because my degree was more in behavior and architecture, psychology, and on my graduate committee they were all psychologists except for one architect, and it was required to have an architect as chair of it. And A&M at that time was the only school open to that because Berkeley was the only one that had even offered that course. And A&M was delighted, and they said, yes, we want somebody that'll shake up the waters. So that's how I ended up here.
Well, Rodney, thank you very much for this fascinating presentation. And Rhonda has something for you.
So I have a gift. It's homemade banana bread.
Oh, nice.
And Carolyn Carr, who is a potter for us here at Peace, made you the bread plate that it sits on.
Thank you.
So this is for you to take home and enjoy.
Thank
But
you
we
very
just
much.
appreciate you being here and
Oh,
sharing
yeah.
your
My pleasure.
with us and the history that you gave to us.
All right.
So thank you very much.
You're quite welcome.
And thank y'all for coming. I guess if y'all want to talk to Rodney, on the side over here, right? He had told me that he's in a hurry to get out.